G'day Year 10s. Today we're looking at Scatterplots and Bivariate data. Continuing on with statistics, obviously. We'll get into the key ideas. Like normal, can you please copy in the notes that we've highlighted? Bivariate data is data that has two variables. Okay, so it's almost like comparing two things at the same time. Scatterplots can be used to display the bivariate data, so that's what the actual type of graph is. Scatterplots can be described in terms of their strength, no correlation, weak, moderate, or strong, and their direction, negative or positive. I'll go through a couple of examples of the differences between, your positive and negative and your weak and strong. We'll go from there. Bivariate data can be described by stating how one variable on the y-axis behaves as the x-axis increases. Okay, again, you're going to understand a lot more of this when we actually go through some examples and you start doing the questions. But just want you to copy these in. In bivariate data, a dependable variable is one that is affected by another. Independent variable is one that is not. Okay, so we're going to go into the positive or negative first of all, in terms of how it can be described. All right, so this is our scatter plot. I'm just going to quickly draw some in. So if these are our points, depending on what obviously the data is, and it's trending going like this, from left to right, it's going up, it's positive, okay? Positive, so if it's going upwards, it's positive. Opposite to that, obviously, if it's going downwards, it's negative. Okay, so if you had a heap, that the trend was that it's going down, obviously that's going to be a negative. Okay, so that's relatively simple. Now, in terms of how we describe the relationship or the trend, it's positive, it's strong, weak, moderate. Okay. Now, basically, that what means is, if you looked at your data and you could see something, a really clear trend like this, so it's all grouped together, it's all kind of going the same way. That's a strong. So that would be strong, negative. Okay, so if it's really grouped together and you can quite clearly see that there is a trend going on, it's going to be strong. Okay, if we had data that was a little bit more spread out, but there's still a trend. Okay, something like this. So it's a little bit wider. It's not as easy to see, but it's still trending upwards. Okay, that'd be your moderate, or your kind of, so you've got your no correlation, weak, moderate, or strong. Okay, so it's basically just the relationship that the variables have with one another. Can you see a trend in there, or is there no trend at all? Is it weak? Is it strong? Is it moderate? Or is there no correlation at all? If it was just completely all over the shop, you had variables everywhere and there was no trend at all, there's obviously no correlation. Okay, so if it's something like this, that there's absolutely no rhyme or reason as to why these things are there, there's no correlation. Okay, that's just a quick example of the different types of trends, whether they're positive or negative or neutral or so on and so forth. Okay, moving on to our first example, and here's an example of how we are going to describe it. Okay, so here's our data, the number of hours spent exercising per week, which is down here, comparing it to the weight in kilos. Okay, so these are two variables. You've got number of hours and weight in kilos. They're being compared. You would see here, if we kind of grouped it all together, it's trending downwards. So it's negative straight away, but they're not really close, are they? So they're not all in this tight little corridor there where they're all the same. They're a bit more spread out. So we'll describe that. Consider the strength and direction of the plot. The scatter plot shows a weak negative trend. Okay, so there is a trend that is going downwards, but it's not really clear cut, okay, because there's some that go against it. So the scatter plot shows a weak negative trend. And then describe the trend shown in context of the data. So our context is our number of hours spent exercising compared to the weight in kilograms. So to describe it, the weight decreases weekly as the number of hours spent exercising increases. Okay, so if you're exercising more, you're going to be down this end, and more often than not, it's going to be on the lower scale of the weight. Okay, so the less you exercise, the higher you're going to be up. As our number of hours spent exercising increases, it tends to trend that it's going in a negative manner. It's going downwards. Okay, so the more exercise, the less weight. Okay, that's just one example of the relationship between the two and how it would be described. All right, here's our second one. This is an example of actually drawing a scatter plot. Okay, so our data is hour of sleep per night, which is here, and then compared to our exam marks. All right, so we're going to have our hours of sleep per night down the bottom like they've done there, and then our exam marks. Then all we need to do is go through and plot each point. So we have 8 hours and they scored 72, which is there. 6 hours scored 61, which is there. Okay, then it's just a matter of plotting off all of these like they have done. Then you would look at this. What's our trend? It's positive because we are trending up. Hours spent per night, the more that goes up, so the more hours you spend sleeping, the higher your exam marks are going to go. It would not be a strong correlation because they're not really close together and really tight. So you would say it's a weak or a moderate. Okay, probably more moderate because there is a trend that's quite easy to see that it's going up, but they're not really, really close together. Okay, and then to describe that, you would say the more hours you sleep per night, the higher your exam mark is likely to be. Okay, if you're being asked to actually describe what the data is showing. All right, so we're going to go through one more example. We've got a scatter plot data here. Now, data is our height in centimeters and our shoe size. Okay, so our two variables are height in centimeters and our shoe size. We're going to put it into a scatter plot. You would have to have your x-axis and your y-axis labeled, and we would go from there. Okay, so here's what they have done. I might just quickly copy this. Copy it, and then I'll put it in here. Okay, so now we've got the table and the data and the answer. Okay, so they've put their height down bottom and their shoe size up the side. Again, you can look at that and you would go, we've got a positive, and that would be pretty strong because it's all pretty close together. So positive, strong. Okay, and if you were being asked to actually describe that data based on the information, you would say that the taller someone is, the more likely their shoe size is to increase. Okay, again, there's a positive data going through there, and it's quite easy to see, meaning it is a strong piece of data as well. That's all we've got for this video, guys. What I need you to do is have a look at the questions that you've been set, depending on your teacher, and go through from there. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.